You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
"Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?"
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
"Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music."
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
"Hey, Meta, call Eva."
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Take a deep dive into the stories making the news headlines across the world.
The newsagents.
We're not just here to tell you what's happening, but why. From me, Emily Maitlis.
And me, John Sopel.
With Global's award-winning podcast, The Newsagents, dropping daily, covering everything you need to know about politics and current affairs.
And The Newsagents USA.
Listening to The Newsagents on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Open your free iHeart app and search The Newsagents to start listening.
The Athletic and theathletic.com has joined us. He's a weekly guest at the Friday Football Feast. And it's at Alec_Lewis if you'd like to follow him via the X machine. And Buffalo Wild Wings Plymouth. Can we get a witness? And a raucous round of applause for Alec Lewis joining us, ladies and gentlemen.
Hair looks good today.
Thank you.
I got to tell Charles. So thank you.
What about me? I think my hair
Charles, your hair.
I
don't have to tell you your hair looks good.
That's a good point.
I do have something to tell you. I am in my fantasy championship.
Oh, you are?
I didn't even check the playoffs last 3 weeks.
What?
What do you mean? I don't have time. The Vikings are 13-2. I don't have time to check.
You can't just glance at your lineup.
No.
Well,
okay, listen.
Well, then you shouldn't be playing fantasy football.
I shouldn't.
With all due respect.
No, I mean the reality is I shouldn't. But guess what? I'm in the championship.
So you may have he may have hurt players starting against teams who are trying to win money.
I just started the whole Vikings lineup. Jefferson, Addison, Jones.
Well, then you never have to worry about hurt players because that was one of our conversations earlier in this show.
Well, I hope Johnny Munt gets a touchdown for the team you never look at.
I mean, when you have Tyler Williams as your executive of player health.
Apparently you don't need it. You don't have to worry about it. Well, okay, there's this. Here's what I need to train into you, Alec. 1 or 2 times a day, I know you've got 4 or 5 minutes with not a lot going on.
Right.
In the bathroom. This is when you manage your fantasy team.
Oh, geez.
You've got nothing else to do. Bring the phone. Get your fantasy team ship-shape, squared away in the bathroom.
Well, part of the problem is
you're not doing anything else in there.
So on my
starting to go too far.
On my app, on my phone, I'm not logged in, and I forgot my ESPN password.
Oh, jeez.
So I just don't care. I don't know. And I also I know this: the people listening to my fantasy team, they couldn't care about anything less.
Do you understand? You did an awesome job filling in yesterday 9 to noon.
Congratulations.
I appreciate.
I mean, we got some applause in the crowd.
I appreciate.
Okay, now what goes with doing a radio show? You'll notice every 12 or 27 minutes you're taking a break, right?
Yes.
Okay, now during the course of the break, there are things that run that are called advertisements.
I've heard.
Commercials. So we have a fantasy football company called Guillotine Leagues that pays $350,000 for the middle portion of the Friday Football Feast. and you're directing everybody listening right now to not play fantasy football.
No.
That flies right. That's like me saying, hey,
shots fired.
Let your battery run out. Don't get a check. Don't go to FBPparts.com.
No, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, either put the money that guillotine spins.
No,
anyway.
most people are normal. Most people they're signed in on the app. They just look. It's easy. It takes 2 seconds to see if Kenneth Walker's hurt again.
Yeah.
Let me pull him out of my lineup. Ryan Grubb's not going to run the ball. Let me just put every Seahawks receiver that I have in the lineup.
Right. And then they score 6 points and you lose.
Yeah. No, the point is nobody cares about my fantasy team. I just wanted Charge to know that while I care about your hair, I also care about your passion.
Well, I appreciate. Well, my passion is my hair, but that's a whole other story.
Seriously.
Now that I know how you handle your fantasy team, I want to give you the first invitation to my 2025 Guillotine League entry fee $1,000.
And we had somebody drop out of Mad Hatters and Mad Producer. I'd like to issue you an invitation into that one to go and take. I can give you a spot right now.
I'm in 2 leagues. When I meet somebody and it's like, yeah, you play fantasy football. I know your job is football, and I'll be like, yeah, I do. I'm in a league. I've been.
And how is Lucinda, the lady you met in your lobby?
Yeah, and that's good. And I'll ask them like, how much fantasy do you play? And they're like, I'm in 6 leagues. I'm like, come on, man, come on. You cannot be doing that. If you check 6 fantasy leagues, you're not working hard enough. You're not working out enough. I'm nothing against it.
Charge, how many fantasy leagues are you in?
17.
Charge. But
don't make me laugh with this cough, man.
No, but
just lost me for a half.
No, but here's the thing about Charge. He's built. I know very well.
He's the identity of fantasy football.
He is fantasy football.
I know.
To the point at which I think it's a fascinating tale of how he's gotten to be where he is. The Vikings play the Packers this week.
I got a question to ask you off something you said yesterday. You being from Anniston, Alabama, and you being a big fan of Alabama Crimson Tide football. Amen?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been meaning to ask you this for a little while, too. When Josh Jacobs played at Alabama, how good was he?
Well, I said this yesterday, but if you go through the list of Alabama running backs, it's Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, Eddie Lacy, T.J. Yeldon, Kenyon Drake. There's a billion guys I'm forgetting.
John Lewis.
Josh Jacobs was as well-rounded among all of those guys. And the thing about Josh Jacobs was he was like a 3-star out of Tulsa or Oklahoma. And I think the story was Nick Saban goes down to watch him play, and he was in the bleachers at some game, and he watches Josh Jacobs, 3-star recruit, and he's like, this guy, we have to find this guy. And so, or we have to get this guy. You're making hand signals. I'm all thrown off. Anyway.
That's why we like playing your team.
Josh Jacobs, he's the guy's incredible. And I'll never forget this offseason when the Packers let go of Aaron Jones. I texted our Packers writer for The Athletic, Matt Schneidman, and I was like, what are they doing? And then he didn't know that they were going to bring in Josh Jacobs, and they bring in Josh Jacobs that same day, and it was really you're gonna. But it has become, the run game has become their identity, and it's not just the physicality, but it is the design around their run game. It is beautiful. It's really poetry to watch the motions that they do. They'll have Jaden Reed in the backfield. They'll have 2 running backs in the backfield. It's an impressive run game.
Okay, now, lastly, on the Crimson Tide Covenant, when Xavier McKinney played there, was he unbelievable in college?
He was definitely really good. There's no question. And Saban loved him because Saban's a DB guy. But I just give props to the New York Giants for the job that they've done letting Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney out of the building. It's just phenomenal work.
And Daniel Jones.
It's it's phenomenal work by them. When you can let 2 of the best players on each side of the ball out of your building, you just have to do it.
This will be the one and only Hard Knocks executive GM edition that there ever will be, because Joe Shane's getting fired and nobody else is going to step up for that job and would be willing to be on camera to show all the machinations, because all Joe Shane did was make bad call after bad call after bad call.
Well, and you got the New York Jets owner. He's evaluating players on Madden. You got the New York Giants. Right. They're on. It's what is going on? These are. It's funny. You'll love this. But there's an executive that I talk to all the time in the league.
Yeah, how is Howie Roseman?
And he says to me,
wish.
he's like, he says all the time, if people knew sometimes the dynamics or the decision-making process of what goes on sometimes in these buildings, they would be absolutely blown away by some of the incompetence of it. And that's not to just, there are very well-run organizations. I think the people here wearing jerseys root for one, but sometimes it's just baffling.
And the other thing that I think people don't realize is how much infighting is inside an organization. Like, let's just take the Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs thing, which I don't have reason to think there was infighting, but very easily could have been a huge contingent of Packer personnel that wanted to keep Aaron Jones, and for good reason, and a number of people that did not. And there will be knockdown, drag out conference room battles over stuff like that. But when the signing happens, it's like we're all on board. You never hear about that stuff. Once the signing happens, it's like 100% in, not 99-1. It's 100-0. But behind the scenes, this thing might have been 51-49.
I say it all the time. Like, you're dealing with guys with major egos who work in this business. You cannot be a head coach in the NFL if you don't have a massive ego. Why? Because you stand in front of a room of 80 alpha guys that are the best in the world at what they do. And if you don't have an ego to believe that they want to listen to you, then you're not going to be an effective coach. And so you got that level of ego. You got the front office people who get paid to know what their evaluation is.
Yeah.
You have scouts putting in the work. You have coaches who know they're going to be working with that player every day. There are a lot of dynamics. And to bring it back to the Vikings, that is why this offseason, I give them a lot of credit for what they did. And I guarantee you it has worked out phenomenally well in terms of all the free agent signings that they've made. But I guarantee you there were times where either front office wasn't on board with certain player, defensive staff wasn't on board with certain player, but in the end it worked out, and I think everybody bought in, and that's why they've had the success that they've had.
It's worked out awfully well so far. Both, I think for the Vikings, we'll see. We think it's working out well. I'd like to know the draft room dynamics. That part we don't know as much about.
Yeah, but I don't think you can say anything. Oh, you mean just Jones? Or totality of free agency? Totality. I don't see how you can grade it anything less than an A-. And I think I'm being conservative.
Well, the free agency, there's no, I don't know. Let me list off the guys that they signed. Jonathan Grenard,
A+.
Andrew Van Ginkel,
A+.
Blake Cashman,
A+.
Sam Darnold was a free agent. I don't know if you guys have
that
seen
seems to have worked out pretty well.
Aaron Jones.
Well, how about, the work that they do with reclamation projects, it's beginning to bear its fruit, because that's what Darnold was, a reclamation project turned into a monster. And this next player, he's not a monster, but he's having the best season of his career under the radar. I think you know what I'm talking about here, Jerry Tillery. Jerry Tillery was a former first-round pick by the Chargers, labeled as a bust. Now, he cuts time with Jalen Redmond, so, he's not playing the full game. But even having somebody like that, Jonathan Bullard on a one-year cheap deal, guys like that's just how fast they've been playing with these signings.
I laugh when you said Jerry Tillery because he's such an interesting guy. I talked to him in the locker room yesterday.
Unbelievable.
And I did an interview with him this summer, and I'll never forget. It was the first time I introduced myself. I talked to him for 3 minutes. Sam Newton of PR was standing right next to me, and I told him after, I said, Sam, I hope you didn't hear that, because that might have been the worst interview in the history of NFL media.
I had one of those with him, too, during a drive-by.
But he's a fascinating guy. Yeah. He's a real thinker.
After a win. And he blocked a field goal.
But what I would say about the signing, specifically defensively, that makes him that has worked so well.
Yeah.
Brian Flores is so good at knowing what a guy can do and what a guy can't do. And he does not put a guy who cannot do something in a spot. He's just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's very, the way I described the offense recently was they whittle down the fat. They cut out the fat of what what plays, what designs don't make sense for this offense, and I'd say the same goes for the defensive staff.
Yeah.
If it does not make sense for a player who can't do something to be in a certain spot, he will not be in that spot. That's just how they operate.
I bet you I can make Chart smile and or giggle maybe chortle with this next line about Jerry
Snort
Tillery.
in play?
We'll find out. You ready?
Yeah.
When Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, and Jerry Tillery, I believe, first met. Do you know where it was?
I heard this.
It was at maybe the Orpheum or the State Theater. They just happened to be sitting next to each other at a Leon Bridges concert.
What?
I told you.
Kwesi said that on the air?
Yeah, he filled in for O'Connell after the Bears game for X's and O's, the 11 a.m. piece, talking about Jerry Tillery and stuff. And he's I'll never forget when I first met Jerry Tillery at a Leon Bridges concert, but they were there to see somebody else, like one of the opening. It's like you.
So that's what
the opening bits.
That's what I was going to say. Is Kwesi definitely specified that Jerry Tillery was not there for Leon Bridges?
Right.
He was there for some eclectic salsa.
Yeah, Nashville P.
What I'd like to know is they hadn't already planned this, and it just so happened,
Yes.
like the mathematical improbability that a general manager would happen to be seated at the Orpheum right next to Jerry Tillery. And by the way, nobody wants to seat next to Jerry Tillery because he's going into your seat.
Well, you don't want to be behind him for sure.
And you certainly don't want to be behind him.
Is that Miles Bridges or
Leon Bridges
up there?
Yes. Tillery is an unrestricted free agent, and they're sitting next to each other.
I know.
And Kwesi's stroking his chin, going, "Wait a minute,
I'm pretty sure he was already signed and he was here.
Okay.
But I think the first time they saw each other out.
All right.
This is
Can you imagine Jerry Tillery flies to
Minnesota to see Leon Bridges? Right. I'm like, what?
No, he was already signed.
Alec Lewis, The Athletic.
Well, then how had they not? How had they not met already? Then how do you sign a player and you've never met?
Because I don't have the meat of the answer of all the questions you're asking, ruining the one-liner. So all right, 3-2.
It's still a good story as far as I'm concerned. This past free agency A+ effort by the front office.
You wanted the draft.
The draft is what I was specifically talking about. That's still, that is the part. That is the one part of this. Of what Kwesi has done, that we still don't have. We have an eye. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Because we won't know on J.J. McCarthy for a while. We won't know on Dallas Turner for a while. And the two previous drafts were bad.
Get used to it.
And it's one of the reasons.
Bad part, but get used to not being able to figure out things.
Well, there's a lot I can't figure out, Paul. I struggle to get into the mayonnaise jar at home.
No, I'm talking about with Kwesi. All right, 3-2. Come on, man. With Kwesi, it's clear analyzing stock that is playing in the trading market at which you trade, the New York Stock Exchange, free agents. All right, then we got the NASDAQ, which would be, let's say, the late Friday, all Saturday of a draft. Rounds 4, 5, and 6, deep third round, okay?
Yep.
Rounds 1 and 2 in the first half of the third round, they don't qualify in this mishmash that I'm rolling with. But if I'm Kwesi and I have a stock trading background, why do I want to throw metaphorical darts at players who may or may not work from Southern Methodist University in the middle of the fifth round on a Saturday, when I can identify players who have gone against the players who are on our schedule for 2, 3, or 4 years, and I know people within the covenant, so therefore I can kind of get the tells on what they're about, good or bad. So why would I put a big focus on the second part of the draft when I can just go ahead and get a laundry list of free agents at the NYSE?
Let me clarify something.
What happened?
Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was not just purchasing the Apple stock, okay? His job was commodity trading. It's very complicated, but it was a forecasting job.
Yeah.
You look at weather, you look at energy, and you are making predictions on the future, forecasting the future. So
I'm getting Sam Darnold for a nickel
now,
and I'm gonna sell him for $38. Well, that's what good stock people do.
Your point is correct. When you are signing free agents, you have so much more data to work off of, to make your prediction, to make your forecast.
Ever hear Kwesi in an interview talk about the amount of data he prefers to have?
Well, I more mean beyond just, I'm not saying data numbers. I mean, yes, it's data numbers, but also it is information to make your prediction, to make your forecast. Whereas the draft, the reality of it is, and this is not to excuse the drafts, they were bad. He has admitted that in the past. Like he understands that it needs to be better. There's no question about that. But I will tell you, when you are predicting 21-year-old players and what they're going to be in a different league, in a different scheme, 7 years down the road, it is a much more difficult forecast than predicting guys who have already been in the league. To your point, Charge, it's 100% correct. For this team to go where everybody in this building wants it to go every single year, they have to be better in the draft.
They do.
He knows that, and I think this whole staff knows that. The question for me, one of the major aspects of that is continuity with defensive schemes. The more you have the same scheme, the more you know the types of players that will fit that scheme. So as we talk about this offseason, certain people getting interviewed, Brian Flores, what's going to happen? To me, the continuity, like look in Kansas City, they know exactly what Steve Spagnuolo wants.
Yeah.
And for 4 years...
And it's not Ben Lieber.
Honey.
We talked about that yesterday. We talked about Spags yesterday. But for 4 years, he has picked the Justin Reeds, the Nick Boltons, the smart players who are very versatile that have fit that scheme.
Karl Loftus.
And so for Kwesi...
Chanel.
For Kwesi, this whole staff... they had not worked with Ed Donatel, and his scheme was very, very different from what Brian Flores is. So you're picking players that fit in different schemes, and so the more I think they can have similar operations on both sides of the ball, you would hope that the better their picks become. But I always come back to the reality that the draft is a very, very, very uncertain process, and I always ask, like, can you really be great at the draft over time? The Lions have been so good.
So good.
But is that sustainable? We're going to find out. But if you look at historical studies that have been done, 3-year success over the draft is not often a sticky thing. It doesn't often translate to the next 3 years. And so, to me, while yes, the drafts have to be great, they have not been great. I will be just very interested to see how it goes moving forward, and it has to go well, to your point.
That'll preach right there. Well
Speaking
done.
of defensive continuity, is there a coach on staff, if Flores leaves, that can walk in and run the Flores defense? Are we training somebody on staff now that knows what Flores does and can pick up that and use this same kind of system to maximize the players that we've got that are built for the Flores system?
I say Lance Bennett. Well, simply because I think they might be best friends from childhood.
Lance Bennett will be with Flores wherever.
Wherever Flores goes, he's going to.
Weren't they together as kids in New York City or something? And Lance is a defensive assistant.
So Lance
very,
Bennett,
very smart guy.
Lance Bennett is a former. He used to work production and music with Will Smith.
Oh,
what?
Really?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
Lance
one who
Bennett.
slapped Chris Rock.
So for people listening to this, Brian Flores has a guy that has been with them forever. They're high school friends, grew up together. And Lance, you will see this guy around Flores all the time.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, and you're at practice for the first time, you're like, who is that guy? What does that guy do? He's always carrying binders
super smart.
of the playbook.
Yeah.
But he's a phenomenal guy. I sat with him last year for an hour, and he's great. But he left. He played high school football, played college at Indiana, and then he had a dream of being in music. So he worked in production with Will Smith, and then ultimately found his way back to football. Was with Flores in Miami. Is now back here. If Brian Flores were to leave, then Lance would go with him. To Charch's question,
well, just off Charch's question, I'm going to ask you this and have you build it from there. Why? I mean, the Vikings defense last year opened some eyes, okay, and Flores' name kind of popped up all over the place, right? Well, I mean, this year it's been historically good in certain spots. So I understand the stark difference here. But with multiple lawsuits taking place against the NFL, that include Flores against the NFL, or at least one, but I think it may be multiple, why should I or we believe it will go from he got 0 calls last year with a bunch of openings to now all of a sudden they're going to be pounding down his door?
No, it's a very good question, and we'll see. I mean, I believe those lawsuits are still ongoing.
Yeah.
There is also there have been, comments made by other former players.
Tua?
Other guys that he's played under. But I mean, I think why would he get calls this year? I mean, because the job he's done is just absolutely ridiculous, especially considering the talent, ridiculously good considering the talent that they've had.
Yeah.
And also now they will be on a national stage. They play in prime time.
Oh, good point there.
They're going to be talked about nationally.
Shiny toy, though. Tom
Brady's going to talk about them a lot on Sunday afternoon. To answer your question, the two guys on staff that I think I would watch, I don't know if they have it. I don't know if they could get that. I don't know. But Durante Jones, who is the DB's coach, secondary coach, he was a DC at LSU years ago, so he's been like the leader of that unit. And then the other guy that I would mention would be Mike Saravo.
What about Patton?
Pettin's done it for a long time. Pettin's very highly respected. He's associate head coach and all that. But to me, Mike Saravo, inside linebackers coach. He came from the Panthers, where he was with Phil Snow and was at Baylor in college, so a lot of college background. Very sharp guy. Durante and Saravo would be the two guys internally that would make sense. But, I mean, part of what Kevin O'Connell wanted in hiring Brian Flores was a guy that had done it, that had a defensive vision, that was his complement on the defensive side of the ball. So I would wonder, would he go try to find a guy who has led that unit, like, for a long time, years past? I don't know if that would be like a Robert Saleh. I don't know. But like a guy who has been a leader in the past, like that would be another option probably.
By the way, Robert Saleh, just as very quickly, looking pretty good right now because the Jets defense has completely fallen apart without him.
Wow.
Firing him did not help anything.
Right.
Saleh will be working as a defensive coordinator this next year.
More conversation with Alec Lewis from The Athletic when we return to Buffalo Wild Wings Plymouth for the Friday football feast.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Classic style, innovative tech. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee, desperately. So you say,
Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?
To make a latte, brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you start walking to work, and you need a soundtrack.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
With the built-in camera, you snap a pic of a dope mural on the side of a building that you think is worth sharing.
Hey, Meta, text my last photo to Eva.
Sending message.
After work, you head to meet some friends.
Hey, nice glasses.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Listen to music, make hands-free calls with open-ear audio and built-in microphones, and so much more. All while staying present to the world around you. Shop Ray-Ban Meta glasses at meta.com/smartglasses.
We have a happy 12th birthday to Austin Harper of Apple Valley. Happy birthday, Austin. Joins us yearly for the Friday football feast. Apple Valley. What about Plymouth?
I love Plymouth.
What do you got against Plymouth?
No, Plymouth is spectacular.
We're in Plymouth. Okay, let me. YA has that patented sneaky chat coming up in Egan, so we got to get him out of here soon.
Is Grant Tarkenton?
Yeah, I wish I was at the sneaky chat. That sucks.
Sneaky chats are always
nice job, Ekstrom. But anyway, what do I got? Oh yeah, and I might be wrong with this. I hope I'm not because I added it up in my car this morning and just a little tired. Ivan Pace Jr. and Blake Cashman together, okay? I believe they played 6 games together. There have been 6 together. Pace just missed 4. He missed 2 earlier this year. Cashman missed, those 3? Those 3 in the middle or whatever?
Sure.
6 together, they give up 63 rushing yards per game. The 4 without Ivan Pace Jr., 121 per game. Ivan Pace Jr. missed the first Green Bay game. What do you think of all that against your Crimson Tide guy, who legitimately is going Derrick Henry on the league? I mean, with 14 touchdowns and some long runs and stuff. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I wrote this week, but when Ivan Pace Jr. and Blake Cashman are on the field together, the Vikings are giving up like a 7.7% explosive play rate, which would be the best in the NFL. So, I mean, what those guys together, it's just an exponential thing for this defense. Ivan Pace is so good at blitzing and at stopping the run. Blake Cashman is so good in coverage. When you have both of them, they can both do what they do well. Whereas when you don't have one or the other, like when they didn't have Blake Cashman and we were in Los Angeles, Ivan Pace had to play coverage. That's not his strong suit.
Right.
When they haven't had Ivan Pace, Blake Cashman has to blitz. He's good at it. He can do it, but he is not as good at it as Ivan Pace Jr. And so on that facet of this game, I don't think Josh Jacobs is phenomenal in pass protection.
Right.
So if you have Ivan Pace Jr. coming at him full go, it's going to be huge. And he's been Ivan Pace, who is obviously activated, he's eligible to return from injured reserve.
But he practiced all week in full. He's playing.
Practiced yesterday. Yeah, I mean those hamstrings give me. I mean I don't like soft tissue.
Well,
stuff.
they give you pause.
Yeah, because. I mean, some of them, like, they crop up well, but I know they crop up often. But, no, when those two guys are on the field together, this defense, I mean, that's part of what has been so cool about this defense. Like, all of the guys they signed, like, the collective is what's special about what they've done. So,
yeah, no doubt.
It will be
collective
huge
is special
to have Ivan Pace back.
No doubt.
Yeah, and we talked about the run differential last week. We talked about it this week. It's just, if the Vikings can take away Josh Jacobs and neutralize him, then the Vikings are doing what they do in situations where they do get big leads on teams. You make them one-dimensional. Now, granted, Jordan Love can still go beat you pretty easily, and I worry a lot more about him than, say, Geno Smith, making him one-dimensional. But if you can get to a point where you don't have to worry so much about the run, and now you can play to stop all these weapons that the Packers throw at you with Jaden Reed, who I'm really nervous about in this game, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson if he goes. It's just such a big part of the game when you can force your opponent to have to throw.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Well, the first time around, I mean, that's what happened. The Vikings led, I think, 21-0, 28-0 in that game.
Yep.
And at that point, I think the Packers only ran 19 times in that first matchup. Mm-hmm. That's the lowest carry amount that they've had all year. They didn't lead in that game, the Packers, the only game this year that they didn't lead in.
Wow.
So,
okay.
To me, that's kind of the formula. It's can the Vikings generate a lead pretty quickly? But the reality is at that point in the season and early in the season, like the knock on the Vikings was, they generate a lead, but if they're down and they're trailing, they can't come back. Well, guess what they've shown the last 4 weeks, and guess what Sam Darnold has shown? If they are trailing and it is late, they can't execute consistently down the field. So, taking the run game away is essential. It's going to be very hard. This run game is very good. So, we'll see.
Speaking of trailing, the Vikings have trailed for just 22% of their offensive snaps. That's number one in the league, and it's by such a big margin. The next closest team is at 30%. And what a luxury the Vikings have had to play with a lead on 78% of their snaps. Wow.
I think the thing I saw this week is the teams that have trailed the least in the NFL all year, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. These teams are just phenomenal. But that's part of their strategy. Like, I don't think that number in terms of how little the Vikings have trailed in terms of when they've run offensive snaps. I don't think that's like a random thing. Kevin O'Connell and how this staff plans games, they think about and they talk about, what is this going to take to win? Like, what is our formula? What is our path to winning this game?
Yeah.
And oftentimes that is the path that is proven to be successful. So that's how they're going to try to play the game.
What do you think of the Lions into these final two, given their injury situation?
I mean, their defense, it's just been depleted. You lose, your number one defensive tackle, your number one edge rusher, your number one linebacker, your number one cornerback.
Yeah.
I don't know how the heck they're going to try to stop the Vikings. Next week, like the Vikings passing game, the Lions might have like 12 defensive holding penalties to try to just slow the Vikings down. That's probably the only way that they can slow them down. But the Lions' offense is so good that they're just going to try to. It'll be 50-40. I think every time they play, that's the strategy they're going to take to try to win the game.
A last one for YA, Charge. Do you have a last one here?
Yeah, I do.
Alec, so you can that sneaky chat.
TJ Hawkinson, we're now, I don't know, like 7 games into his return.
No TDs.
No touchdowns. And, typical box score coming in at 4 catches, 40 yards. It's not the production I expected, maybe because Jordan Addison is playing a bigger role and that he is better, and this team has got more options. Obviously, they're winning games with the production that they are getting from him. But do you share any of my surprise that TJ Hawkinson hasn't been a bigger part of the offense?
It's funny. I have a good friend who listens every Friday.
How is your father, John Lewis?
And every week he'll be like, who goes off this week?
Yeah.
And every week for the last month, I've said, I think this could be a Hawkinson day.
Yeah.
And there have
been, you nailed it in the Bears game at Soldier Field.
No, but I don't know if I said it that day.
Right.
But I mean, look, has the production surprised, or the lack of crazy production surprised me? Not really, because the reality is when he was out, the Vikings had to adapt, and so then Jordan Addison becomes the number 2 primary option, and to change that would mean changing what has been successful. Now, I do think there is going to come a time, and maybe it is Sunday, where the defense is so loaded up on these primary receivers in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, that TJ Hawkinson is just one-on-one on a linebacker or a small defender all day. And again, it could be this weekend.
Right.
And if I see TJ Hawkinson lined up against Edgerrin Cooper or whoever, Isaiah McDuffie, whoever the heck their linebacker is, because I don't think Quay Walker is going to play.
Right.
He can win in those situations, and he's going to have to win for them to be successful. So I think, they've just done such a good job with their offense right now that I'm not going to question, why is TJ not caught more? Why is he not caught touchdowns? I think it will come when it comes, and maybe it is Sunday.
Hey, I will see you after practice and O'Connell's press conference. Safe travels over to the Sneaky Chap.
Thank you.
Just think, from Plymouth to, say, Eden Prairie. Just rethink the question a little bit about the guarantee you want to make that Daniel Jones will start week 1 next year. And speak up at the Sneaky Check. Speak up, please.
No, I'm going to let the other. I'm going to let everyone
right.
last. I'll see you later.
I'll see you in a few hours.
The Plymouth crowd, obviously.
Hey,
yeah. Get him going.
Alec got to go. Give him a round of applause, my man, right there. You're listening to the Friday Football Feast at Buffalo Wild Wings Plymouth on KFAN. Don't leave.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Classic style, innovative tech. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee, desperately. So you say,
Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?
To make a latte, brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you start walking to work, and you need a soundtrack.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
With the built-in camera, you snap a pic of a dope mural on the side of a building that you think is worth sharing.
Hey, Meta, text my last photo to Eva.
Sending message.
After work, you head to meet some friends.
Hey, nice glasses.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Listen to music, make hands-free calls with open-ear audio and built-in microphones, and so much more. All while staying present to the world around you. Shop Ray-Ban Meta glasses at meta.com/smartglasses.
Savage is guiding the great ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN, doing impeccable work as usual. Nice having her part of the Love Covenant. And with Paul Charchian, I'm Paul Allen. We're at Buffalo Wild Wings Plymouth for the Friday football.
Well done. I didn't know if you were going to get one in today.
What's that mean?
Well, your voice. This is not. Well, and there you go, right there.
Valor was the better part of discretion. I should not have done that. All right, 3-2. Denver at Cincinnati. That does nothing for you, right?
Well,
Denver
from a fantasy standpoint, it is a lot for me.
Oh, well, give it to me.
Well, first, Bo Nix could be a fantasy champion based on the Cincinnati defense that has been awful, both on the run, although Denver doesn't really have a running attack. What we need is Bo Nix. Sean Payton has taken the wheels off of Bo Nix. He barely runs anymore.
Okay.
I need him to run in this game. I need him to abuse a secondary that is maybe the worst in football. But Bo Nix he's the guy who could pop off for like three passing touchdowns and a rushing score in this game, just because Cincinnati's defense is so bad right now.
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton's been a serious helper. Meanwhile, Joe Burrow's been on fire. Oh, did you hear this stat? This is amazing.
Give it to me.
Bengals have only beaten backup quarterbacks this year.
Oh, gee.
They've lost to every starting quarterback they've played.
Oh, wow.
I know. So, and Joe Burrow, it's a lost season for them, but he has played really, really well.
Right.
And you're going to get a little Jamar Chase against Patrick Surtain. That is a matchup for the ages right there. Surtain might be the NFL's best coverage cornerback.
Heavyweight fight, though.
Jamar Chase is going to win the Triple Crown, Paul. He is going to finish with the most receptions, the most receiving yards, and the most receiving touchdowns.
Okay.
That is an epic matchup.
Arizona at the Rams. Now, Seattle wins the division if Arizona can win this game, or it ends in a super special tie. If the Rams win, they win the division. And you see the problem that the NFC West is having here is you have so many high-end winning teams from the NFC North.
Yeah.
So 2 are guaranteed, and then you have Washington, with Philadelphia. So, I mean, this is like, if you're a fan of the Super Chickens, watching this Arizona at Rams game, that's everything.
These Rams are so weird, Paul. Some games, they look invincible. And you're like, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, Matthew Stafford, and they just eviscerate some team.
Right.
And then they play the Jets last week, and they can barely get anything going. They look completely inept. And if I've got to pick a team as thinking about this strictly from a Viking standpoint, I don't want the Rams. I don't want the Rams in the playoffs. I don't want Sean McVay in the playoffs. I don't want Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford.
I don't like it.
They know how to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they could get hot and get on a roll.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want the Seahawks in the playoffs. That's a team I don't feel bad about matching up against, and I believe there is still a scenario where the Vikings could end up traveling as like the 6th seed. They could end up traveling to Seattle.
Yeah.
And
really?
I think that is the case. Because the Vikings can go from 1 to 6.
Yeah.
Right? As potential.
Yeah, I've always thought the NFC, because they'll be the best wild card, so they would get the worst division winner,
right?
Which I've always felt it was the NFC South.
And I don't want to see Tampa either, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know. I'd much rather see Atlanta.
If it's Atlanta, I'm like, big deal.
Right.
Penix or not. I'm kind of with you on that Tampa Bay thing. Vita Vea, Levante David.
Right.
Antoine Winfield Jr.
Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if they get these guys healthy and everything,
And the other part of Tampa that I don't want. Baker Mayfield's got some slinger to him, right? Any game Baker could pop off for a big game. He rushes for first downs, he extends plays, and they've got one of the 5 best running backs in the NFL on Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving is awesome, Paul.
And he hasn't played enough games to be one of the 5 best.
No, he has. He has. Paul, he is so good.
The Birch.
The metrics. Let me tell you some of the metrics on Bucky Irving. I'm going to do this off the top of my head, but it's going to be close to accurate.
I got you.
Yards per carry, 3rd best in the NFL. Yards after contact, number 1. Bucky Irving is 4 yards after contact.
Jeez.
The dude is a power back who is as simultaneously slippery as all get out.
Well, that's because defensive players don't know who he is. So when they hit him, they think he's going to go down. Then they're like, damn, you're big.
He is, Paul. As I'm watching Bucky Irving tear apart NFL defenses, I'm like, why didn't we do whatever we had to do to keep him a Gopher? I would have loved to have seen him finish out his career here, but he is great. Tampa's a team I don't want in. I'm rooting for Michael Penix and the Falcons to find their way into the playoffs.
So Atlanta 8-7 at FedEx 10-5.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, I haven't watched him that super closely of late, but there was a point he came back to the pack. Now that's going to happen. That's going to happen for just think about Darnold, okay? We're loving Darnold up the first half of the season. Then all of a sudden we got that Jacksonville game, and it's like, whoa, clock strikes midnight, or that's what a bunch of people were saying, and he improved from there. Daniels came out house on fire, and then he just kind of settled into quality, but then he dipped near the end of the season. What's his status now? What do you think?
Well, Daniels is coming off a statement game last week in which he helped the Commanders topple the Eagles. Now, granted, Jalen Hurts got knocked out of that game, but Jalen Hurts doesn't play defense, and Daniels threw 5 touchdowns on the best secondary in football.
Wow.
It was an absolute coming of age
Which
moment.
team? The Eagles?
Daniels. They played the Eagles.
Okay, so against the Eagles, Quinyon Mitchell and
Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean,
Darius
Eagles,
Slay,
right? And Daniels went out and threw 5 touchdowns. That is and they won the game. It's one of those games where you look back and you go, "That's when he arrived."
Right.
Josh Allen. When did Josh Allen arrive on the NFL, Paul?
Right.
Against our Vikings.
In 2018.
2018.
When he's jumping over Anthony Barr.
Exactly.
As a 16.5-point underdog.
Remember that?
Wow.
Yep. This was
down memory lane we
This
go.
has the feel of a statement win last week for Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Now he gets a Falcons secondary that has allowed the most touchdowns in the NFL, most passing touchdowns in the NFL.
Oh, gee.
Jaden Daniels potentially sitting in a gigantic fantasy box score, but just real life or fantasy.
Yeah.
Washington's going to the playoffs, Paul, and Jaden Daniels is going to win Rookie of the Year. This thing has come together so nicely for Cliff Kingsbury in that offense.
Any idea post-trade how things have worked out for Marshawn Lattimore?
I do know. So
you're playing really fast right now. If you do know on defensive players,
I do know on defensive players.
You're playing really fast right now.
So they traded for the Saints Marshawn Lattimore because the Commanders are looking at their division and saying, we have to get a physical cornerback who can body up somebody like AJ Brown, right?
Yeah.
We need somebody who can battle AJ Brown, that can battle CeeDee Lamb, these bigger physical receivers.
Yeah.
And so they trade for Marshawn Lattimore. Now, he was in the middle of a hamstring injury that was nasty.
Oh.
He didn't play until 2 games ago.
Oh.
First 2 games ago, Marshawn Lattimore wasn't even thrown at.
Oh.
There was so much respect for Lattimore.
Yeah.
Then last week, he has 100% shadow coverage responsibility for A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
They threw at him 10 times, Paul. 10 in one game at one cornerback. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 3 pass breakups in that game.
And he had been out for a little bit before.
Like 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months.
Yeah, he had been out a long time.
Oh, wow.
So still a little rusty.
Yeah.
But so Lattimore's back. We don't know for sure. We know historically he's been very good, and he loves that one-on-one matchup with other physical receivers, and he's one of the only cornerbacks that can really thrive in that situation.
Wow, holy cow. You ask about a cornerback from an NFC East team, and
we're breaking it down.
All of a sudden, like a Mike Zimmer handbook on how to play corner emerges. That was very impressive.
Thank you.
David Sinekin, the head cheese, the Sultan of Smug. He'll be here about 25 minutes from now, and 9 to noon continues at Buffalo Wild Wings Plymouth after this on KFAN.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
after Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
Hey, Meta, call Eva.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.
Take a deep dive into the stories making the news headlines across the world.
The News Agents.
We're not just here to tell you what's happening, but why. From me, Emily Maitlis.
And me, John Sopel.
With Global's award-winning podcast, The News Agents, dropping daily, covering everything you need to know about politics and current affairs.
And The News Agents USA.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
Listen to The News Agents on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.